Welcome to the Digital Intellect, bringing you the latest news from around the world. The year 2025 began with chaos at the port of New Orleans. Massive cargo ships, loaded with U.S. corn, were being turned away. Contracts worth millions evaporated overnight as over 2 million tons of corn, once destined for global markets, were rejected and sent back. Corn prices crashed to decade lows, leaving farmers facing losses on every bushel. The silence on trading floors was replaced by panic. The foundation of America's grain trade was crumbling. Buyers in Europe and Asia now demanded non-GMO, low-chemical, fully traceable corn, standards most U.S. crops couldn't meet. The Grown in the USA label, once a mark of quality, had become a liability. The crisis rippled through the heartland, hitting everyone from truck drivers to grain elevator managers and devastating small towns. The mountains of rejected corn symbolized a deep disconnect between American farming and global consumer demands. The system that once promised prosperity now delivered only uncertainty and ruin. The golden tide of American corn had been stopped, and the heartland braced for economic devastation. For decades, American corn was the backbone of global agriculture, feeding livestock in Japan, fueling food processors in Mexico, and stabilizing world food prices. The Corn Belt's vast surpluses and unmatched logistics made the U.S. the world's top exporter. This dominance fueled investment and innovation, reinforcing America's role as the world's granary. But the seeds of crisis were sown early. The U.S. embraced GMOs while global sentiment shifted toward non-GMO and sustainable crops. In 2013, China began rejecting U.S. corn over unapproved GMO strains, a warning sign ignored by much of the industry. As Europe and Asia prioritized food safety, environmental impact, and transparency, the U.S. doubled down on yield. The rise of organic and non-GMO movements abroad was not a fad but a fundamental shift. America's model of industrial-scale, GMO-heavy production became a vulnerability. As the world demanded cleaner, traceable grain, the U.S. legacy of dominance began to unravel. The reckoning of 2025 was years in the making. The world's appetite had changed, and America failed to adapt. By summer 2025, U.S. corn prices collapsed to $3.45, $3.50 per bushel, well below break, even for most farmers. Unsold corn stocks hit a 6-year high, with 2.5 billion bushels sitting idle in silos. Barge traffic on the Mississippi dropped 16%, and the Port of New Orleans became a parking lot for grain no one wanted. Storage and transport penalties piled up, erasing what little profit remained. Meanwhile, Canadian corn fetched up to $1.87 more per bushel, thanks to its non-GMO, low-carbon, traceable status. The numbers told a harsh truth. The world still wanted corn, but not from the U.S. The logistical chain that once moved grain efficiently was now seizing up. Farmers faced financial ruin, while Canada thrived by meeting new global standards. The U.S. was losing not just money but its place in the global market. The collapse was total and the pain immediate. The corn crisis was fueled by a perfect storm of policy blunders and shifting global demands. Protectionist tariffs on Chinese ships drove up shipping costs by 25%, making U.S. corn less competitive. New export testing fees and bureaucratic hurdles further raised costs for exporters. The Mississippi River, once the artery of U.S. grain exports, became a bottleneck as barge traffic slowed. Even when buyers could be found, getting corn to port on time was nearly impossible. The final blow came when Mexico banned GMO corn for human consumption, with Asia and Europe quickly following suit. 92% of U.S. corn acreage was GMO, locking America out of its best markets. The world now demanded non-GMO, low-carbon, traceable grain. U.S. policy and infrastructure failed to adapt, compounding the crisis. America's largest export was suddenly unwanted. The global market now demands clean corn, non-GMO, low-chemical, low-carbon, and fully traceable. Decades of skepticism and new regulations have made non-GMO a mainstream requirement in premium markets. Buyers insist on strict limits for chemical residues, especially glyphosate, and proof of minimal environmental impact. The EU's Renewable Energy Directive sets greenhouse gas thresholds, excluding high-carbon grain from lucrative biofuel markets. Traceability is now essential. Importers want to track every shipment from farm to port, verifying its origins and quality. Advanced tracking systems like blockchain are becoming standard for exporters. This shift reflects a deeper consumer demand for transparency, safety, and sustainability. Food companies and governments are building supply chains that are transparent and verifiable. For many, sourcing clean corn is about brand reputation and consumer trust. The The US, with its GMO-heavy, chemically intensive model, is out of step with this new reality. While US farmers struggled, Canada seized the moment, pivoting to non-GMO, glyphosate-free, low-carbon corn. Canada's three no's policy, no GMOs, no glyphosate, low carbon, matched global demand perfectly. A nationwide blockchain system, Prairie Trace, gave buyers full transparency from seed to shipment. This traceability built trust and allowed Canadian corn to command premium prices in Japan, South Korea, and the EU. The government backed the transition with export credit insurance and logistics subsidies. Landmark trade deals like the Canada-South Korea Organic Equivalency Arrangement secured long-term contracts. By June 2025, Canadian corn sold at up to $1.87 per bushel above US prices. Canada didn't compete on volume but on quality and sustainability. The result, multi-billion-dollar deals and a new global leadership in premium grain. Canada showed the future of agricultural trade and left the US behind. The numbers don't capture the heartbreak in the Midwest. Rural economies shrank, businesses shuttered, and food aid applications soared as families who once fed the world now struggled to feed themselves. Farmers held back crops, sold off equipment, and took second jobs just to survive. The dream of passing down the family farm faded under mounting debt and foreclosure. Ethanol plants closed, slashing jobs and eliminating a key market for corn. Local governments, starved of tax revenue, cut school days and public services. Small towns grew eerily quiet. Businesses closed early, streets emptied, and a zombie economy took hold. Ironically, farmland values rose as investors snapped up distressed properties, pushing family farmers out. The crisis hollowed out communities and threatened the very fabric of rural America. The human toll was devastating, and the future uncertain. The corn crisis is just the beginning. Soybeans and beef are next. 94% of US soybeans are GMO, making them vulnerable as global buyers demand non-GMO, sustainable crops. Europe has already delisted US soybeans from its low-carbon whitelist, threatening billions in exports. If Asia follows, the Midwest faces a double blow. The beef and dairy industries, reliant on cheap corn feed, are also at risk as feed costs rise and carbon footprints come under scrutiny. Europe is considering carbon taxes on imports, which would penalize US beef and dairy. The American model of high-volume, high-input agriculture is out of sync with global trends. Without a strategic shift, soybeans, beef, and dairy could follow corn into crisis. The alarm bells are ringing for all of American agriculture. The time to adapt is now, or risk losing global leadership for good. America stands at a crossroads: continue with protectionism and subsidies, or adapt to the new global market. Doubling down on tariffs and outdated practices will only deepen rural decline and cede leadership to competitors like Canada. The alternative: bold leadership, dismantling self-defeating barriers, and investing in technology and infrastructure. Policies must support farmers in transitioning to non-GMO, low-carbon sustainable crops. This isn't abandoning farmers, it's equipping them to win in the new global arena. The stakes are high: the health of the heartland, rural stability, and America's standing as a food power. The world will always need food, but won't wait for the US to catch up. America can embrace the future of agriculture or become a relic of its past. The decisions made now will echo for decades across the fields and trading floors. It's time to listen to the market and forge a sustainable path forward for American farming.